Good afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is tart day. Yay. You could call them pies. You could make this into pies, but we're going to make tarts. I think tarts are just so fun, and they're just individual servings, and they look pretty, and it's just a really fun thing to be able to have. We're going to make 2 different pie crusts, and then we're going to make coconut pastry cream, and then go from there. I have some things already done so that we can kind of move a little quicker with things, but then we'll be baking all at the same time. So in the end, I'll have beautiful tarts for you to look at. So glad to have you here. My name is Jennifer. I'm the owner here at Make It Sweet, and we are thrilled to have people joining us for these Facebook Live classes. It's just so fun to do them. I really enjoy it. It's really kind of kept me going, and teaching is one of my very favorite things that I get to do. So this continues that. So glad to have you here, and thank you so much for joining us. Today's Wednesday. We were busy here in the store. It was there were a lot of people. People are baking at home, that is for sure. And so we had a lot of people in buying boxes and boards and pieces and parts and cake mix and flour and yeast and all kinds of stuff. So it was really nice to see people coming in and doing that. We had one time when we had like 5 cars out there. So we were running bags out to people that had called their orders in or that mailed their orders in. So you can, if you want to email us with orders, you can do that. That goes to mail@makeitsweet.com. And just be sure, you can just describe what it is you're looking for. You don't have to have numbers or anything for it. But be sure to include your phone number with it. That's the important part, so that we can get in touch with you if we need to on kind of a last minute basis before you're headed in. So that makes it easier for us. And or you can just call us and you can place orders that way. So our hours are Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10 to noon. We're saying 10 to noon. We're here till 2. And so if people drive up, it just gives us a chance to be able to have some time to be able to pull orders together and get things together for the next time that we're here. So that's why we say just 10 to noon. We do limit it, so the number of people that come in, it's never more than 10 people in here at the same time. And everyone, now the city of Austin is requiring masks. It's not an option, and so bring your mask. And if you don't, then we have some bandanas and some fabric cut up, and we'll make you wear one. So be sure to bring your mask with you. And then we have gloves of all sizes out front, and we ask that everyone wears gloves as well. So we do the same. We want to stay safe, and we want to keep you safe. And so that's the important part with the face covering and also with the gloves. All right. Not tomorrow. It's going to be Friday. So Friday is going to be cinnamon rolls, and that's like just in time for the weekend. That'll be perfect because then you can save them. You can make them on Friday. So do all your work with it on Friday and then bake them on Saturday morning so that you have really fresh, delicious cinnamon rolls. They're good for dessert too. So you can bake them on Friday and eat them for dessert. But, and I think Randy will probably want me to do it both times. He's quite the cinnamon roll fanatic, I'll call it. And so he'll probably want them both times. So I'll bake them on Friday so that you can see what they look like, of course, right? And then I'll have some that I'll bake on Saturday morning as well. So that will be our plan for Friday. And then Monday, I can't actually tell you what it is on Monday. So I'm going to do a little bit of a tease here. So if at 11 a.m., turn into to KXAN. It's Studio 512, and I'll be on there doing a segment. And so tune in for that. And then our Facebook Live is going to tie in with that on Monday, and it's a cake that we're going to do. So I will say that much, but I'll let you know on Monday. You'll see what we're going to be doing. and doing that. But if you want to tune into the Facebook Live, go to the NBC station, so KXAN, and then tune in at 11 o'clock for that. I've done a lot of segments over the years with them, with Stephanie and with Rosie, and I'm excited to be doing one remotely. And so we'll do it that way. I miss going into the studio and doing them. It's always a fun thing to do. So tune in on Monday for that. But today is going to be tarts. So we're going to make two different kinds of tarts. So the first one that we're going to work on is a butter crust, and that one is going to go with some apples. And so we're going to make an apple rosette. And so it's really pretty, and it's just fun, and it's delicious, and it kind of reminds me of apple pie, but a little bit easier, but a little bit fancier at the same time. And so that's going to be the first one that we're going to make. And then the other one is coconut cream pie. And so that one we'll do in tart form, and Randy's over here just about salivating because coconut cream is his absolute favorite pie or tart. And so he can't wait till they're finished. I have some pastry cream that I already made, but I'm gonna make some pastry cream here too, so that you can see that and see how to do it. It's one of those things that's not hard to do, but when you, if you just look at all the list of things that you have to do and the steps, it kind of seems complicated, and it seems more complicated than it really is. So I'll show you how to do that. So glad to have everyone along. Give us just a second. We're gonna reposition the camera so that you can see our crusts are both gonna be made in the food processor. And so we'll be doing that first. That will be the first thing. All right, give us just a second. All right, I think that's good. I'll be able to move the food processor here in just a second. For right now, it's gonna be the scale that we're gonna work with. And like I said, we're doing this in the food processor. You could do this in by hand, that would be fine, and you could use like a fork or a pastry blender and do that. But most of us have food processors. You can pull it out of your bottom cabinet. Probably don't pull it out all that often, but it's really nice to use it for this crust because that way we're not touching it very much. And so it makes a very nice tender crust that comes together so quickly.
So just to make sure, a lot of people are asking about pie crust, and that's basically what you're
Absolutely.
making.
I'm making two different pie crusts. And so we're making one that's all butter and one that is shortening. And you could use these for any kind of pie, whether it's sweet or savory. It doesn't have to just be sweet things. You could use them for savory applications too. So what if you were making like chicken pot pie? That would be a good thing to make, especially using all those leftovers. Does everyone have as many leftovers in their fridge as I do? It just ends up being like you almost have to have a leftover day, and I'm not a leftover fan, so I don't know that we'll have a leftover day, Randy.
Maybe not.
Randy's pretty good about eating leftovers for lunch, so that's a good thing. All right, so the first one I'm making is the sour cream butter crust. So this one, actually both of them, are going to start with 360 grams of flour. And that's 3 cups, but it's always so much more accurate if you use a scale. So I'm just going to measure straight into my bowl of my food processor, and that way I don't have to wash another bowl. And so I'm just going to scale it right into here, 360 grams. This is just standard all-purpose flour. 275, 300. And see what I'm doing? I'm just sprinkling as I'm getting closer, and that way I won't go over. So just little bits. Oh, I went over a little bit. 2 grams. There we go. All right. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add my butter in here. And so I just pulled my butter out right before we started. And this is like 2.5 sticks of butter. or 280 grams, and it's cut into pieces, and then I kept it cold. So it's been in the refrigerator this whole time. There we go. I'm gonna add my sugar and my salt.
And you cut it up so it combines easier?
Yes, so that it works in much easier. So now I've moved this over, and I hope you can see once this is up here. You know how every food, yeah, it works. It looks good. Every food processor is different. This one, you actually have to put the bottom bowl on, and then the top part can go on. And now I'm going to be doing the chop/pulse. And I want to do that until this all comes together. So it's going to come together, and it's going to be a dry mix. So it's going to take a little bit. I don't want to see any big pieces of butter. See how I still see big pieces of butter in here. So I don't want to see any big pieces left. And I call those kind of like long pulses. So rather than it just being like this, which is like a short pulse, I'm kind of doing a little bit longer pulse. All right, and now when I look at the consistency, I don't see any big pieces of butter in here. So do as I say and not as I do. Don't put your hands into the food processor because there's a really sharp blade in there. So you want to be really careful. And so you don't want to see any big pieces. I'm going to give it one more pulse because there's still a couple of pieces that I'm seeing in here that are a bit bigger than what I want. So 2 more pulses. There we go. And now it's ready to go. So now the only other thing that goes in here is going to be our sour cream. So instead of using water or other liquids, we're just adding the sour cream, and there's enough moisture in here to hold this all together. And it gives such a nice rich flavor to this crust. It's a really nice tender crust because of the sour cream that's in here. All right, this I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna do some long pulses. And it's going to take a little bit. So this is going to be another like minute, maybe 2 minutes of long pulses. And I want it to come together in a ball. You don't have to worry about stopping and scraping down along the way. Just it will continue mixing. I'm going to stop and show you what it's looking like. See how it's looking like it's much more, it's coming together in clumps now? That lets you know that you're getting closer. And now it's really coming together in clumps. And it's almost like you hear it change in here. You hear the motor change. There we go. Almost. And I want it to come together in a ball. There we go. Done. All right. So now it's all together. That's all you're looking for. That is so fast and easy, right? And super simple ingredients that you probably have at home. You know, some flour and some butter and sugar and salt, and maybe you have sour cream at home. I usually have some kind of sour cream that I can find.
What if you don't have a processor?
So you could do this by hand. It's going to take some elbow grease. You can use a dough blade, and those have little wire tines to it. Randy might grab one over there so I can show you what it looks like. And that would be fine to do that and just do it by hand. You want to do the same steps and make sure that the butter is cut all the way in, and then be able to do it. Oh. He went running out to the store, and I have one hanging right here in the classroom. I'll tell him that once he comes back. All right, so I like to have my dough hook, or my bench scraper, and all I'm gonna do with this is just form it together. I don't really want to work this too much. And so this is enough, and the recipe is enough for two 9-inch pies or 24 tarts. And so it makes quite a bit. I like to cut it in half, form this into a little bit of a disc, wrap this in plastic, put it in the refrigerator. This one, you can't work with it right away because it's butter. And the butter really warms up when it's in the food processor. And so this needs to go into the refrigerator before you can actually work with it. So about an hour in the refrigerator is enough, but you can leave it in the fridge for up to 3 days, or you can freeze it. So it freezes beautifully, works in the refrigerator great. So it's super simple dough to be able to work with. All right, let me show you the pastry blender. So it can be ones like this that have like a little bit thicker tines on the bottom, or there's a smaller one that has just kind of more like a wire tine. I like the heavier duty ones. These cut the butter a lot better. My mom always used a fork. I don't know that she ever really even had, a pastry. I'm sure she did, but a fork works really well too. All right, there we go. So we're gonna put those to the side and wrap those up. And I'm going to start the shortening based dough. And I'm gonna use the same bowl because it comes out of the bowl. The butter one comes out really, really well, and so it's not dirty enough that I don't think we should just use that same bowl. So I'm going to start the same way, and I'm gonna start with my flour. So 360 grams of flour. So just put your bowl on, hit tare. So I think for Randy, this whole thing has made it seem like the old days where he used to have to do some stuff every once in a while to help with class. Ooh. So it's pretty funny. There we go. 360 is what I'm going for. 305. He definitely was very sure to wrap that dough up though and put it in the refrigerator to save it. Because he's like, we're gonna eat pie of some kind for sure. All right, so I have my sugar and the salt. I'm gonna add this in, and then I'm just gonna give this a little mix. There we go. So just a little stir of the dry ingredients. And now I'm going to add my shortening in here. And so this, we use a shortening that's called high ratio shortening. High ratio shortening has additional emulsifiers in it, plus it has a little bit different melting point than a regular vegetable shortening like Crisco. You could definitely in this recipe use a regular vegetable shortening that you can get from the grocery store, or if you're a caker and you have some high ratio shortening, you can definitely use the high ratio shortening for this. So there we go. That's gonna go in. All right. And so this, I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm just going to mix until it's dry and crumbly. So I'm going to do the same pulses. but you'll see the shortening goes in so much faster just because it's so much softer. So that's a big piece of shortening there. There we go. Gotta break it up. Too big. I had done all of my, it's called mise en place, when you have like all of your ingredients ready to go, and so I had it in all the things, and I had the shortening in the refrigerator. Probably shouldn't have done that. I never refrigerate the shortening, so we usually just use it room temperature. So now, just like butter, I'm having to cut it up into pieces. You'll have yours room temperature. It will do just what I said, and it'll go in so much easier. All right, there we go. Now it's dry and crumbly, and that's what we're looking for, is dry and crumbly, no big pieces of shortening in there. This particular crust has an egg in it too, and so it's going to make it a little bit richer, and so it gives a lot of flavor and texture to this crust, and so I'm just going to crack the egg into my bowl, and then add that in, and then it has 5 tablespoons of cold water and just a teaspoon of cider vinegar. Cider vinegar, or any kind of vinegar in a crust, it just makes it really tender. And so it's not enough to taste. You won't taste it, don't worry, but it is enough that it will kind of change the texture of it. So I'm gonna start with my pulses. There, you can hear the motor starting to really work. There we go. It's done and together in a ball. All right. This one ends up being a little bit stickier, so you have to use your spatula to kind of get this one off of the dough blade. So if you were ending up making both of these for, let's say you're making Thanksgiving dinner or something, you clear these away. And if you were doing that, then what you would want to do is do the butter one first, because that way you don't have to wash the bowl in between. But you can see it just kind of sticks to the bowl there. I'm going to put a little bit of flour down in a minute and then be able to work this together just a little bit. There we go. All right. We have another pie crust recipe that's on our website that uses vodka instead of water. It does the same thing. It just makes it more tender. And the reason is that it evaporates faster than water, and so it makes a different consistency for your dough. But that's another one. We do that one in the food processor too. So all different kinds of pie crusts, tart crusts. All right, there we go. All right, so now I just want to form this all together so that it comes together. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to form it into a disc here. I'm going to cut this, and then we'll wrap it. So this one, you could use this one right away. Because it is shortening, it holds up a lot better in the food processor. So you could use this right away. I do like to refrigerate it for a little while though, because it will make rolling it out a little bit easier. So there we go. We're gonna put those to the side, and then I have some that I had already made that I'm gonna use to roll out. Right. So the first one we're going to do, and hopefully, like, the thing that I really want to talk about with you on this is just how easy those crusts come together.
You know, we made 2 crusts in like 20 minutes. And so that would make a lot of tarts. That would make a lot of pies. So 2 big 9-inch double layer pies, or 4 if it's just single crust pies. So much that you can do and not have to rely on the one in the red box that comes rolled up. You know, those are good too, but being able to make your own just ends up being so much nicer in the long run. So there we go. All right, my first one is going to be, we're going to use the butter one, and we're going to use apples with this one. And so this is my butter crust that was in the refrigerator. There we go. And I'm just gonna roll out a portion of this. I'm not even gonna roll out the whole thing. And I'm going to roll to a size. And so with this, what I'm actually gonna do is make some strips. And so I want it to roll out to about 1/8 of an inch thick, and I want it to be the size of half a sheet of paper. So on the instructions, it says like 4 1/4 by 11, which seems like such a weird size, right? But it's just a half sheet of paper on the long side. And so it's easy to be able to have your measurement right here for it and not have to pull out a ruler or any special equipment or anything. So 1/4 of this will roll out to that size. All right, I want to put some flour down. You want to roll on flour to keep it from sticking, and you do want to make sure that it's not sticking. There we go. But I'm not going to roll like in the flour. I'm not going to roll so much that it's getting so much flour on it. And even before I start rolling, I'm just going to kind of form it into a little bit of a rectangle. That's just going to make rolling this a little bit easier. And I'm going to put some flour down, and then I'm going to grab my rolling pin. And I'm not going to try to get this to go into its shape all in one roll. We're gonna need to work with this a little bit to be able to get it into shape. So I'm almost wide enough. So I'm just gonna start getting my length here. And this ends up being very thin. You want it to be very thin because this is gonna go into a pie or into a muffin tin. And you know, you don't want just a ton of just dough. Did you see how it was sticky on my rolling pin? I'm gonna put some flour on my rolling pin, and I'm even gonna put a little bit of flour on the top here. There we go. And you can keep moving it around. That way you can know that it is, that it's not stuck. There's nothing more frustrating than getting to the point where you have it all rolled out and then it's stuck on your table. And so you have to peel it back off or try to, and that never works very well. And I'm just using my bench scraper and just kind of evening out my edges a little bit. I'm gonna keep rolling in the middle here and rolling on this end. I can see that's a little thicker than what I want it to be. And I'm almost right there. So I just kind of keep coming back to my piece of paper, putting it over the top and seeing what else needs to be done to roll this. There we go. And this piece is going to make 3 apple tarts. So not just one, this is 3 apple tarts. All right, so before I cut this, what I want to do is I'm just evening out my edges. I'm right there at my half sheet of paper, and now I'm going to use a pizza cutter, and I'm going to cut this in thirds. And so it's going to be long ways in thirds. So I'm just gonna kind of mark it on each end. That'll just give me a little bit of a guide so that my lines don't just go crazy wonky. So there we go. And just match your other line. You could pull out a ruler if you wanted to, but absolutely don't need to do that. So I'm just gonna take 2 of these and put them to the side. I'm gonna work with this one, and I'm going to use the cut side up. And I'm gonna get my pan together. I'm gonna get a little bit of Edgelene spray and put it in here. And you know, there is so much butter in this crust, it's not gonna stick. But I need a little bit of insurance that that's not gonna happen. So just a little spray. You don't need very much. And then for our apples. So I have Red Delicious apples and Granny Smith apples, and I'm going to use different ones so that you can see what they look like baked both ways. These, I leave the skin on and then core it, cut it in half, and then slice it. So these are nice thin slices, and then they go into a pan with some butter, with some sugar, with some cinnamon, and you want to just heat it, not till they're mushy, but just till they're soft and pliable like this. And then I want to position it so that see how the apple is going up just halfway over my pie dough here. There we go. Takes about 4 good sized slices or more if it's small ones. And then I want to fold up the bottom. If you want to sprinkle on some more sugar, you could do that. I think these are sweet enough, honestly, with just the sugar that you end up using when you're heating the apples. So I'm not going to add any additional sugar. And now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to roll. And I'm rolling from the end. And then once you get to the end, you turn it over and ta-da, you have that beautiful apple rosette that you can then bake. So this then goes into your muffin tin, and then you bake it. At the very end, I like to dust it with a little bit of powdered sugar. It's just really pretty on there, but you can leave them just like this. If you wanted to add, we sell these, and you can find them even in like HEBs. These things called caramel balls, and they're made by Kraft, and it's like the same kind of caramel that goes in those, like the squares of caramel. It's the same kind that is used for that, and they're just so good. So you could nestle a couple of those in here, and so you could have an apple caramel tart that way. There we go. And see how nice and easy this dough is to work with. This pie dough is so nice. But you need to have had it in the refrigerator for a while, because it wouldn't be working like this if I tried to do it straight from the mixer. All right, there we go. The green one looks really pretty too. So I think these are just so fun and just a really pretty tart look for you could do this for any kind of occasion. I made these one time for Valentine's Day, and we were having a dinner party, and I actually I had the dough rolled out ready to go, and then I made everyone make their own. And so it was kind of boys against girls, and trying to see who had the prettier tarts with it. All right, so we'll bake those off. Let me do the last one while I have this dough rolled out. And maybe what I'll do, I'll be crazy on this one, and I'm gonna alternate red and green. There we go. One more green. There we go. Fold it. All right. These smell so good when they go in the oven, you know, because you have like the pie crust part that's going on, and then you have the apple part. It's just a really, oh, I like that one. That's where good. It's the red and green. That's pretty. All right, you don't have to worry about getting your end to hold on. Once it bakes, it'll hold right on there. All right, look, I have some extra apples. We can make some more. All right, so that's that with the apple one. I'm going to show you rolling out the crust for our shortening one that is going to go with our coconut cream, because that one we're going to do what's called blind baking. So I'm just going to get all of my sugar, or all of my flour over here to the side and give this a little wipe, and then I'll be able to roll out my crust right here. All right, this one I'm actually going to cut circles out of it, and so I'll talk about the cutters that we'll use for that, but you could use pretty much anything. All right, here we go. So here's my shortening crust. And you could use either or with the crusts. It's not that it has to be the shortening crust to go with this one, or that it has to be the butter one to go with the apple one. Either one would definitely work. Notice some flour on the bottom, some flour on the top, flour on the rolling pin, flour everywhere. And this, I want to do the same thing. Keep moving it around. There we go. If it's sticky like that, you need a little bit more flour, a little bit more on top. So this I want to roll very thin as well. So about 1/8 of an inch thick. If you're needing to move it around, you can always kind of use your rolling pin to help you guide it. It's that one little spot on my rolling pin that is sticky.
No particular shape.
No, because we're just going to cut circles out. So I have a crazy shape going here. If I was doing this with a pie crust, I would be paying much, much, much more attention to getting this into a round. But that's one of the reasons tarts are kind of easier too. All right, there we go. Close enough. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this cutter. This comes as part of a set, you know, like those graduated ones. I talk about using these all the time. And so I like to use the fluted side. Would you put the rosettes in the oven? Three, 4, 5 out of here. And I'm fine with using your scraps and re-rolling. Or what you can do, always my favorite thing to do, was take the scraps and just, even if they're really haphazard kind of shapes, bake them. I like to bake them with a little bit of salt and pepper on them. And then it just reminds me, my mom used to do that. And she would usually use it where it's salt and pepper and make more like crackers out of it, as opposed to using like sugar or cinnamon on it and making more like a sweet application. So I think that's fun. But you can take this, you can ball it back together, and you can re-roll it. It's never going to be quite as tender, but it's still going to be plenty tender and work well. This one, there's a lot of shortening in here, so no need to go ahead and spray. This one is just straight in. All right, so I just put it in. Use your thumbs and kind of press it in. And see how it just fits in so perfectly. Randy's gonna measure this. This is like a 3.5 inch cutter. Maybe it's a 4 inch cutter. So there we go. All right. And this we're going to do what we're calling blind baking. So we're going to bake this without any filling in it. And then we'll be able to put our fillings in. So this would work great for fruit tarts. It would work great for other things. You could use this anytime you're just filling it. And so you could fill it with like a mousse. You could fill it with all kinds of stuff. There we go. All right, so I have that ready to go. And now when you're blind baking, what you want to do is you want to line this.
What size was it?
You're going to measure it.
Oh, okay.
Three and a half, that's what I thought. So it's 3.5 inches. And that's a great size for a standard size muffin tin. And so notice what I'm doing. I'm just lining this with foil. And I'm not like really pressing the foil in. It doesn't have to be pressed in all the way. This is just so I have an area where I can put my beans. So I use dried beans. A lot of people will use rice for this, and that works fine too. But what ends up happening when you're taking this out, if you end up spilling rice on your pastry, it just takes a lot more to pick up all the rice grains than it does beans, and I think it ends up being about the same price. On the foil, you want to use like the cheap grocery store kind of foil, not like fancy thick foil, because you want it to form inside here. All right, this goes into the oven, and they bake for about 15 minutes until they're golden. And Randy's gonna pull out some ones that are already done. And so he's gonna do that while I'm talking about pastry cream. So we're good. All right. There we go. So pastry cream is so delicious, and so many things that you can do with it. This is going to be basically a coconut pastry cream that we're going to be making for our filling for this. So let me just clean this up. There we go. And Randy's going to move the induction burner and plug it in. Let me grab some stuff. Go. So we're going to get coconut in flavor in two different ways. So the coconut flavor is going to come from the cream of coconut. So this is Coco Lopez. Make this and then use this and make like Mai Tais or pina coladas, and so you'd be able to use the rest for other things. And then we're also going to be adding coconut in here. So in my pan here, I'm going to add whole milk. So it's 1.5 cups of whole milk. And here's the cream of coconut. This is sticky stuff. But oh, it smells so good. I love coconut flavor things. So nice. All right, and then the other things that are gonna go in here, it's gonna be my sugar and a little tiny bit of salt that goes in. All right, that is going to heat to a simmer. And meanwhile, while that is heating to a simmer, I'm going to give it a little stir and then be ready to go with this. So just give it a little stir. You don't want the sugar to be burning on the bottom, so just a little stir. And then while that's heating, what I'm going to be doing is taking my egg yolks. So this is 4 egg yolks. And then I'm going to add 1/2 cup of milk. And then to that, I'm going to add cornstarch and flour. So it's 35 grams of cornstarch That's what's gonna be our thickener for our pastry cream. And then some flour. That's also the starch that goes in and the thickener. And then use your whisk and just whisk this together. All right, so I have this ready to go. Bringing this to a simmer. Almost there, so I'm not gonna bring it all the way to a boil. This one's just to a simmer. I just wanna heat it, and then I'm gonna use the heat from my milk and coconut mixture to do what's called tempering my eggs. So I'm gonna heat that to a simmer. I'm gonna pour that into a heat-proof kind of container where you can then pour it in as you're whisking. If I just added all my eggs into here, what's gonna end up happening is that they're just gonna scramble. I need to temper them in. So this is almost warm enough. Turn the temperature up just a little bit. There we go. All right, so this one, you could make this just plain vanilla. Just replace the amount of coconut cream with more milk, and you could make it just plain vanilla. Don't add the coconut at the end, and so it could be just a standard vanilla. That would be nice, but I like the coconut one. All right, just about at a simmer. This is ready. I have my butter ready for when I'm finished. I'm going to have a bowl and a strainer ready. So this is what it's gonna get strained into once it thickens. And then some vanilla. So while I'm waiting on this to heat, let me talk about this vanilla. So this is called vanilla bean paste. It's a really thick syrup. See how it looks kind of like a molasses kind of consistency. And it has little flecks of vanilla beans suspended in it. It is truly one of my very favorite ingredients to use. It gives a really rich, robust vanilla flavor to things. And I love seeing the little flecks of vanilla. You know, it just looks a little fancier. All right, so I am right there at a simmer. I'm just gonna turn this off, and then I'm going to pour this into my cup measure so that then I can just easier be able to get this in with my eggs. And then what you want to be doing is you want to be whisking your eggs while you are pouring this in. And notice it's just a slow stream. I'm not trying to go fast with this. As I get more in, I can go a little faster. But if I added all of this in here, I'm gonna end up with scrambled eggs. And yes, that's what our strainer is for, is to any little bits of egg, because there's always a little bit, you know, that ends up cooking with this process. That's what the strainer is gonna do for me. This Coco Lopez smells so good in here, doesn't it? And so, so this, you have to make it in advance and then cool this off. So I made some earlier today, and it's been in the fridge, and so then we'll be able to take our blind baked crusts and then be able to fill them. All right.
Somebody asked about the crust. You mentioned high ratio shortening, but what if you just use regular shortening?
It would absolutely be fine.
Yeah,
Yep,
no
just a regular Crisco that you can get from the grocery store. Not a problem. Because high ratio shortening is not one of those, it's definitely one of those specialty items, not something you're gonna find in just regular grocery stores. All right, so now everything is in. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna take all of this and I'm gonna pour it into my pan. So yeah, this one's a bit of back and forth with pans and bowls, and a little messy with all the bowls, but it's worth it in the long run. So now I'm going to turn the heat back on, and I'm going to bring this to a boil. And you want to be using your whisk the whole time with this, because you don't want this to stick. While I'm doing this, I'm gonna have Randy go and get the blind baked crusts that were already baked. Oh, they're right here. Oh, here it is. And there's pastry cream. Carlos put it in a bag for me. And there should be a cup of coconut in the kitchen too. All right, so this takes a little bit, but just stand and enjoy the smell and do this. Again, it's nothing hard for doing this. It's just one of those recipes that I think if you just look at like all the technique that it tells you, it's just hard to kind of follow along. So it's easier to see this one and then kind of have that idea for where you're going with it. Just trying to multitask and wipe down while I'm here and just standing and stirring. All right. So I can see it's already getting thicker, but it's not at a boil yet. Every once in a while you have to just kind of stop and see if it's at a boil. And it's not, and it will get much, much thicker than this. The butter and then the vanilla goes in at the very end, as well as my coconut. So the coconut that we're using is called macaroon coconut. It is really fine. It's an unsweetened coconut and super fine grain. And so, I think most people, that if they don't like coconut, the thing that they don't like about it is not the flavor. They like coconut flavor, but a lot of times people don't like the texture of it. And so this kind of takes that away, where you don't have that stringy kind of texture with it because it's so fine. If you're wanting to make this and you just have things that you could get at the grocery store, which macaroon coconut is not going to be one of them, you could take unsweetened coconut and put it into your food processor and just make it so that it's fine grain, and then you'd be able to use that for that. All right, getting thicker, getting there. This is a good arm workout when you're stirring. You do not want to walk away. This is not the time to walk away and take a phone call or do something else, because it ends up scorching on the bottom and it's just not going to taste the same. You can't really walk away from this one. This one is hands-on pretty much the whole time with this. All right, there we go. It's getting much, much thicker. Can you see? It's getting so much thicker right now. All right, and I'm almost at a boil. So I'm gonna stop for just a second. Almost at a boil. Did you see how much thicker that was when I put my whisk back in there? All right, now we're at a boil. All right, so I'm turning the heat off of this. I'm going to get my bowl here, and I'm going to take my spatula so that you want to scrape it. There we go. Had it scorched at all on the bottom, I would not want to scrape that part, but it didn't, so yay. And now I'm going to use my spatula, and I'm just going to stir and press in. So this is what gets rid. You can see I have a few little pieces of white in here. So some egg protein that has cooked. On this, I like to scrape my spatula on the side, scrape that back in, and then don't forget the bottom. because there's a lot of the pastry cream that's in there. All right, there we go. Now what we're gonna do is we're going to add in our butter. So my butter was just in small pieces so that it will melt in easier. Look how nice and smooth that is. Yum. Would you just take this out of the way? I really put Randy to work today. Had he known, he probably would have been like, Carlos, come on, or Pam, or Kathy, stay in here with her. All right, so see how smooth and creamy that is? Perfect, just what we're looking for. I'm gonna put my vanilla in here. There we go. And mix that in. And then we'll add our coconut. And so this, then what you need to do is take a piece of plastic and it goes right over the top of it. And I'll show you on my other bowl. So see how fine the coconut is? So that's what that's really nice in here because you get all that coconut flavor and you get a little bit of texture from it, but it's not that stringy kind of texture with it. All right. There we go. This is done. It needs to cool, and so it needs to cool for quite a while. So a couple of hours really is the best bet for it. You want to take your plastic and put it right over the top so that it's touching right on the top, and then put it into the refrigerator. Randy is thinking coconut cream pie. I could see him eyeing it, or he was looking for a spoon. I don't know which. It was one of those. All right. He's like, oh, a spoon, that's a good idea. All right, so let's talk about our blind baked crust here. So when it's done, you can just lift out your beans. I always save these. And so we just have a bucket that we save and that we use them another time. So nothing wrong with it. I wouldn't eat them, so these are not, I guess in a pinch you could. These are not beans to eat. There we go. So just be gentle and they'll pull right out. All right, so I have my beautiful crusts and see how they're nice and golden. That's exactly what you're looking for, is that nice golden color to it. And then I have my pastry cream that's in a bag. And so I don't have a topping to put on this, but you could very easily make like a whipped cream, put it on top. That would be great. Randy's not a big fan of putting like a meringue, but you could put a meringue topping on. That would be great too. So I'm just gonna fill this. All right, there we go. All right, so those are the coconut cream ones. The pastry cream, you can save in the refrigerator for like 3 days. Any longer than that, freeze it, and it would freeze beautifully. So you can freeze that and be able to save it for another time, or just eat it. All right, and then let's see if the rosettes are done. They should be just about done and out of the oven, so that I can show you what they look like when they're baked, and that way we can Randy and I'll have dessert. I didn't have any lunch, so it'll be dessert first for me today, and then go from there. So the tarts, I hope one of the things that you've seen is that they are not hard. This is not a difficult thing to do, and so they're just really pretty and easy to work with. So these are straight out of the oven, and I'm gonna use a little spatula. Ooh, that's hot. There we go. And so then they lift right out, and so you can see the crust is nice and golden and it holds right together. And then you could just put like a little dust of powdered sugar on here, and they are absolutely beautiful. So, you know, who wouldn't want this on like a tray for, you know, for dessert, whatever holiday it is, you know, whether it's you know, Thanksgiving or Easter or 4th of July. I would eat it for 4th of July. Nothing like apple pie and USA, right? All right. So to finish these up, put a little bit of the powdered sugar on the apples. You could do like a whipped cream on top of the coconut cream. Save these in the refrigerator. So the way to store them would be in the refrigerator. For the coconut cream ones, you would want to store them in the fridge. The apple ones could stay at room temperature if you're eating them in the next couple of days. Otherwise, go ahead and put them into the refrigerator and then store them that way. I like the coconut cream actually cold as opposed to having it at room temperature. I like it to be cold. So I would eat it just straight from the fridge. All right, we're gonna lift up so that I can finish up with you guys. All right, I want to thank you so much for joining us for Tarts. Tarts 2 ways, and then lots of other things that you can do. So please try the recipes. Let us know what you think. Give us your feedback, and let us know what everyone in your household said about them. I'll post later when Randy's smiling and and tell you that he was very happy with having some coconut cream. He was the one that came up with doing this one because he wanted a coconut cream pie. So that was his idea for this one. So glad to have you joining with us. And if you have questions, please post them in the comment section. If we don't answer them right now, we will look at the comments later and continue answering them as we go. The recipes and the information will stay out there on our website, so you can go to our website and then just scroll down in the classes section, and then be able to access the Facebook Lives and the information sheets with all the recipes and everything right on there. And then remember, Friday is going to be cinnamon rolls, and so that's going to be a fun one. And then the surprise one on Monday. So tune in to KXAN Studio 512 and do that on Monday at 11 o'clock, and you'll see a little segment with me on there, and we're gonna be talking about a cake, and then in our Facebook Live on Monday, I'm gonna be showing how to make the cake and the things that we're doing with it. So it's a fun one. It'll be cute. You'll get a good laugh out of it. So I look forward to seeing you guys on Friday, seeing you next Monday. Have a great rest of the week, and then we'll see you on Friday. Enjoy your tarts. Thanks. Bye.